Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Adrian Somoza and this is Bond. And I'm going to show you some works that I did back in university, some assignments, and we'll have some fun. So let me show you. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of my progress. So the first work that I'm going to show you is this one. As you can see, like my design skills here were pretty lame. This like big block of black for the title. I mean, it works, you know, functionally it works. You just see that's the title. I don't know why I have like this little line outline. Some icons have black and white and some have color. I mean, I was using Helvetica. If I would have chosen another typography, it could have been worse. I mean, there's a lot of edges here as well that don't work. Like, for example, I would now do like one edge vertically so that all the paragraphs line vertically. Also here, same. I would try to normalize the images so they have all like kind of the same visual weight along the timeline. And this timeline style, like with the outline in black and the bars in orange, I think this could be refined much more, could be more subtle. Anyways, that was one of the first things that I did. It wasn't terrible, but yeah. This was like a little game that we have to do. As you can see, my photography skills were pretty horrible. And I mean, it's design-wise, it could be better, but it's quite okay-ish. I mean, system-wise, there's only one typography, 3 colors, quite clear. Hierarchies are clear. I like this, how I did the title and like differentiation between the title and the paragraphs. There's quite a few things, of course, that don't work here or that could be improved. For example, why would I use like a bold typography for paragraph? I could have done more contrast by using just regular font here to contrast with the size, color, and boldness of these titles. But yeah, this was a pretty big project for us. We had to do something physical, so it was a challenge because we had to think of a game that would be like something that children would use, but they wouldn't get bored to use. I was already like thinking systematically of using one title, like one style for a title, one style for the subtitles and stuff like that, paragraphs. And this is I'm still pretty happy with this one. I mean, this has a lot of levels. Maybe icon-wise, like the images or the iconography is so different from image to image. But other than that, I mean, I did 2 clear blocks. I had to do an infography for 2 channels, 2 TV channels that had different publics. So this was more of a young public, and this was more of an older public, more like formal. So I used a serif for this one, and I used a sans serif for this one. There's a little bit of inconsistency, but other than that, I mean, there's quite a few levels of hierarchy, and it's quite interesting to look at. I mean, I'm quite happy. And the composition, of course, it's balanced because it's symmetric, so that's easy. It's always easy to balance visually the objects in the composition if it's symmetrical. So I couldn't go wrong with that one, right? But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fine. Fine. Then I did this assignment for morphology, so it was pretty fun. We had to experiment with shapes, and then, like, for example, this assignment we had to like take photographs of an object that we did with some morphological interest. And this one we had to do like just some strokes on a paper, and then we scanned it, and then we used like circles and edges, like hard edges, to normalize the shape. So from a very completely organic shape, we vectorized it and then we normalized it. So I think this is the normalized version, and then this is a study of like how the weights and the edges come across. So there's a secondary edge here, but there's a primary edge here. So yeah, this is all, by the way, this is all for the first year. There's 3 years in University of Buenos Aires, UBA, and this is the first year, Morphology 1, Typography 1. I think this is the most interesting part. So this is the subject that I learned the most with. This was Typography, Lonchinotti, that's the name of the main teacher in that subject. And this is like, these teachers and these assignments are insane. I mean, the things that I learned in this subject of the first year of university, it took me like 3 or 4 years of working full-time and applying the knowledge to be able to really process it. And now, after like 4 or 5 years later, I now feel like I kind of like really understand what I learned back then. So it was super intense, and this was the subject that I did, and it was like, okay, this was enough. Like I was burnt out after this subject, and since I was working full-time as a designer, so I left university. But I really learned a lot. So this was like the first real big approach to systems. So we had to do like a little system of different pieces. We had to do like small square ones. So I tried with Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder of Edward Scissorhands, of course. I had like the opportunity to cut a lot of typography since it's Edward Scissorhands. So I cut a lot of typography, and I did a lot of like connections between letters, a lot of levels of hierarchy, and very experimental. This was the first attempt, and we had to do like a series of different designs, and they had to have like different amounts of typography in it, so that we have like very busy ones and with a lot of information, but then we had like very simple ones with just a name and a date, and just different background colors. This was like maybe the cover of a book or something like that. I did a lot of experimentation with this one, and I had a lot of fun, learned a lot. And then this was the first approach. I really liked the color palette here. Blue, beige, and black, right? We had to choose one typography that they actually gave to us, and then we had to choose 3 colors for a color palette. And then you could switch like between the darker color, a medium color, and a light color, to use it like background or as typography. This type of like experimentations with typography opened up a lot of like possibilities for me. I had to simulate as if I was like cutting typography from magazines and putting it together like David Carson does. But I did it in the program. They actually wanted me to do it like by hand and then like scan it. I was like, nah, that's too much work. So I did this like simulated cutting. But yeah, I mean, there's like busy with little information, there's busy with a lot of information, there's black, there's like light color, black color, or dark color. There's a lot of superpositions and very experimental stuff. This is like more minimal, and I like it. This is like more informational, and we had to think like the function of each piece, and we had to think it systematically. So if we have one piece that has a lot of information, then we have another that can be like more like to look at, like maybe an artwork or something like that, not really functional. And then we had to do like some other like functional pieces, like for example this is like a ticket for maybe watching the movie, the premiere of the movie. So yeah, and then when you cut it, I was like thinking like leaving some of the typography on both sides. I think I should have done a little bit more, but yeah, I needed the two to be legible as well. But that was my intention. I mean, it was a good intention. I would make it more clear now, because I see like this looks like a mistake. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you will notice that could have been much better, but I'm quite happy. I mean, this is like more of a loose, experimental type of typography, and it's pretty decent, I would say. And this is a very interesting thing that they taught me for Edward Scissorhands. They had me do a little like what they call a graphic universe, and this exercise of just looking for images that have to do with what I'm doing. For example, I have Edward Scissorhands images of the movie, of different like representations of the movie, photographs of the like posters, and maybe like some titles, some takes from the movie as well, then things that I liked, then more of the like mood of the emo style. So I started looking at like images of like movies or stuff like that that made me remind of this emo style. And yeah, a lot of grunge posters, there's more emo style, so just to get a good feel of the vibes of this kind of colors that I should use to represent this graphic universe. And then like more experimental stuff. This is Neville Brody and also David Carson. I love David Carson, of course. Bam, 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 bam. And this is a really cool learning for me, because I was faced with the challenge of just opening up my reference board with like, look at this. This is a lot of images. This is really a lot of images, probably more than 100. So I thought that to have references you needed just like, I don't know, 10, and then you just take ideas from that. But with this exercise I actually learned art direction. This is art direction. So yeah, super good. I apply this knowledge that I learned from that exercise still like right now with my designs and my projects. And this is the last piece that I did. Looks small. It has two sides here, but then you can open it and it's like a really big poster. I'm gonna show you. This is a poster of Spider-Man. So this is hypertext, what they called hypertext, and it's actually like putting a bunch of information and trying to digest it so that there's like little bunches of information with different like data, like dates of people, like there's also points for Spider-Man and the villain. There's maybe some moments. This is like a timeline with some specific moments, and it's more of a cartoon style. So this is like telling a little bit of a story, and then there's like a lot of text. There's a timeline here. So this was a very difficult exercise, the most difficult I've done in university. And I mean, this was a great exercise to open my mind to big systems of typography, and colors and how to use them in a way that it's functional, but at the same time it's attractive to see and to look at. I mean, now that I look at this, I wouldn't have tightened the letter spacing so much. So all that letter spacing tightness I will get rid of right now, and that would improve a lot the legibility and the aesthetics as well. But other than that, I mean, there's quite a lot of good things happening here. I mean, there's quite a few hierarchy levels, but they are respected, and I kind of like use them all along. And there's quite a few typographic tools that I'm using for like resources, like cutting typography and stuff like that. But I used it quite systematically, I would say. But nowadays, if I had to do this again, of course, there's a million things I would do differently. The typographic hierarchy is not that clear, I would say, and that makes it quite noisy to read. And the visual journey is very unclear here. I mean, it's all over the place. There's big things in corners that don't have like a connection, and just simplifying the typographic system to a bare minimum. I think with like 5 typographic sizes, I could have done everything here, but I've probably used more than 10. So yeah, that's some of the things that I did in university. I hope you liked this video and seeing a little bit of what I did in university. Let me know what you think, what you thought in the comments below. And if you liked this kind of videos, then let me know so that I can do more, maybe. So yeah, that's it. I will see you next time.